Hey there, Diane Conklin with CompleteMarketingSystems.com. You may or may not know this, but I grew up on a farm, a 75-acre full working farm. We had pigs and cows and chickens and our own eggs and our own meat, apple trees. We grew corn and oats and wheat and all sorts of things. And Dad farmed another 450 acres on top of that. Had worked a full-time job the entire time I was growing up, and pretty much never missed one of my sporting events. I'm still not sure how that happened, especially with the way things are today and people complaining about school activities and stuff for their kids. But what's my point in telling you that? It's really simple. One of the things that happens, for me anyway, happened growing up on the farm is that we were about probably a 20-minute drive to the closest grocery store. And when I say grocery store, it was the local kind of grocery store, not a Kroger or a Publix or whatever you have where you live is the big like supermarket, right? Or even a Walmart. I mean, that would have been a 40-minute drive for us. And so it wasn't a situation where we ran to the store. You know, for me now, living in Metro Atlanta, 5 minutes up the road, I can be at a Publix, a Walmart, a Kroger, and multiple other things, right? Or the local, kind of small shops. That wasn't how I grew up. And so growing up, it was always about, because you didn't run to the store every time you needed something, it was about being prepared, right? I was also a Girl Scout, which was the motto, be prepared. And so people laugh. My special person in my life always says to me when I say I have that or I've got one of those or whatever, she always says, of course you do. It's a joke between us, but it's really also true, right? That because, there's extra toilet paper, there's extra paper towels, there's extra canned goods, there's extra stuff in the freezer. Not stuff that could go bad, right? But we canned and froze stuff on the farm. And sometimes I think it was maybe for a rainy day, but it was more because we couldn't get to things. Well, then, fast forward, I spent 8 years of my life in Florida in hurricane country, right? And had multiples of them hit. And so same kind of thing. A friend of mine's mother who lived there locally, who used to watch our dogs when we went out of town, would always say, if there's ever a disaster or a hurricane hits, I want to be here because you guys are, you're so well stocked. And that's just kind of, so during COVID, it was like, I didn't have to go out and do stuff because I already had those things. And so how does that relate to business? What does that have to do with anything related to business? Well, everything. Because the question that I would ask you is, are you prepared? Are you prepared for the shits? Are you prepared for the things that don't go exactly as you plan them? Are you prepared for things to go right? For that matter, are you prepared for the big wins? How many, you don't hear this very much anymore, but when the internet first got started and I first started going online, websites would get shut down when big sales happened and too much traffic got, because we weren't prepared, because we didn't think about, increasing bandwidth and doing those kinds of things. So the question is, are you prepared? And you may be answered the same answer that I have, which is of course, right? Do you have extra, pick something, but in your business, do you think about the contingencies? Are you a problem solver? That's really, I think, the word that I want to use here is, can you or someone on your team strategically solve problems, right? Do you have somebody who sees the forest? Do you have somebody else who sees the trees? Are you blessed enough that you have somebody on your team who can see both, right? That's one of my sort of unique abilities, is I can see the big picture and I can give you the detail of exactly what you need to do to get there, right? Not many people can do both. Most people can do one or the other. Most people can't do both. And that really is one of the things that my clients always say to me is, wow, you have this ability to really see the $1 million business. And you can see me where I am and know exactly what the steps are I need to take right now, and then each additional step or each set of steps along the way to get me there. Whether it takes 90 days, whether it takes a year, whether it takes 30 days, or somewhere in between that, right? There is that process. And so when you really think about this, I want you to that to be something in your head that you're always saying, of course I do. Of course I am, right? Are you prepared? Are you ready? Do you have contingencies in place? Because events are a great way to think of this. I used to say to people when I did event planning, which I don't really do anymore unless you're a current client, and then I still do event marketing, but I used to say to people, when I walk into an event, whether it's an event for 10 people or an event for 1,000 people, I go in with the same attitude. I want to have everything in place, everything done, everything prepared that I can prepare so that there aren't mistakes, so that there aren't shit, so that there aren't screw-ups, so that we don't have to deal with things. But we're going to. It's an event. It's the nature of the beast, right? People and there's a lot of moving parts. The hotel, the food, if you're doing that, the people, speakers, forms, boxes, all kinds of stuff, right? Shipping, where things get delivered in the hotel, right? Mark Victor Hansen tells a story about having his boxes were chicken soup for the soul, right? When he was selling those books and going to speak in an event and looking for his books and they couldn't find them. Well, a week later, they found them in the kitchen because the boxes said chicken soup. Nobody saw for the soul on it, and that's where they ended up being. So there's all kinds of things that are happening. Same thing in your business. There's a lot of moving parts, right? So when you think about it from the perspective of what are the things we need to think about, what are the things that we need to be proactive about in the business so that things don't fall through the cracks, so that big mistakes don't happen. And then when they do happen, just take care of them, right? There's people involved. So people have different ideas about what they heard, about what they're going to get, about how soon things should be there. Everybody has that piece alone is going to create contingencies that you're going to have to deal with in your business. If you want to get to the point where you're a better problem solver, where you can look at these things and say, you know what? We got it covered, right? And the answer when somebody asks you a question of, is this ready? Is that ready? Where's this? Where's that? Is, of course it's done. Of course it's ready. Of course we're ready, right? It's that kind of thing. Wouldn't that be nice instead of always feeling like you're scrambling at the last minute and under the gun, right? And sweating bullets because, oh my God, we forgot something or whatever. I use checklists. I use templates for everything. I've got a 5-page checklist that I use even when I do my own events of, the stuff that has to go, the supplies and all of that. That's just for the day, the days of. That doesn't include the hotel and all of those other things that I also have checklists for. So if you want help with this piece of your business, if you want to have a plan, if you want to not be scattered, if you want to not be running around at the last minute or sweating bullets every time and feeling bad because stuff didn't go exactly the way that you wanted it to, or not even that, but things went poorly instead of well, right? You didn't represent yourself as well as you wanted to represent yourself because of something that you weren't prepared for. Then check it out. actionacceleratorevent.com. I will help you with this. What if 2022 could look totally different than 2021? What if you could double, triple, 5 times, 10 times your income? You can, and I can help you. And it starts with the Action Accelerator event. Check it out. Go to actionacceleratorevent.com. I'm Diane Conklin. Until next time, have a great day.